Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera, where today I'm making a video in response to a question which I often get at my Etsy and eBay stores, and that is, what is a good camera for someone who wants to get into film photography? It's a very good question because whenever we're starting a new hobby or activity, the medium or the tool we use to engage in that activity can make a big difference in how enjoyable it is. For example, years ago when I was younger, I was in a pawn shop looking around at stuff, and they had this guitar for sale hanging on the wall. And it was a really cheap guitar, $40, and I thought, wow, it'd be really cool to to learn to play the guitar, and this one's really cheap. I should try it. So I bought the guitar, and I went out and I got a video cassette and a guidebook on how to play the guitar, and I started trying to learn. Unfortunately, I knew nothing about guitars, and this guitar was really crappy. The top was not very flat, and the strings were too far away from the fretboard, and that made it difficult to play and painful to play. And I really didn't enjoy playing it at all. So after a couple of weeks, I gave it up. I gave the guitar to my sister, who gave it to somewhere else, and it's probably rotting in a dump somewhere today. So it was just a really bad guitar, and because of that, I lost my interest in the guitar. After I came to Japan and lived here for a while, a friend of mine was returning to America and selling a bunch of stuff, and he had a lot of old guitars. And he had a very beautiful one. It was a Gibson, an ES-175. And he was selling all this stuff cheap because the big earthquake had just happened, and he was scared. He just wanted to get the hell out of Japan. So I got the guitar for a really good price, and I was quite amazed at how easy it was to play compared to my old Korean guitar. And because it was easy to play and I enjoyed playing it, I played it all the time, and I still play it today. So having the right tool or medium makes a big difference in how enjoyable a hobby or activity is. The difficult part about choosing a film camera is the wide variety of choices which are available. And as you can see on the table here, I have 5 different film cameras. And they all do basically the same thing, and that is to capture an image, project it through the lens onto a piece of film. But all of them do it in a little bit different, in a different manner, or a different process. The first camera I have here is an SLR, or a single lens reflex camera. And there are a lot of advantages to an SLR camera. First, SLR cameras are a more recent design than some of the other cameras here, and offer more innovations and technological improvements, and can be easier to use. Now, this is a fully manual SLR camera with no automatic features on it, but it is quite easy to use. It has a built-in light meter. You turn the light meter on and you look through the lens, and you adjust the aperture and shutter speed to match what the needle inside the viewfinder indicates. And when you look through the lens on this camera, you see exactly what is going to go on the film. So it makes it quite easy to compose and focus your shot. And also you can interchange the lenses. You can use wide-angle lenses if you're shooting indoors or in alleyways. You can use a normal lens like this for shooting people and faces. You can use a telephoto lens for shooting things which are far away. Or you can use a zoom lens, which will allow you to do all these things with a single lens. It's very convenient. The next camera is a rangefinder camera. And the rangefinder camera has some advantages over the SLR camera. The first is that the rangefinder camera does not have a mirror box like the SLR does, and this gives the camera a couple of advantages. First, it allows the lens to be placed closer to the film, which allows for more precise focus and more precise photographs and negatives. Also, without the mirror mechanism in it, there's less vibration in the camera, so you can take sharper images with a rangefinder camera than with an SLR camera. And though the SLR camera has the benefit of a focusing screen and prism, which allows you to see what the lens sees, the rangefinder camera has an advantage in its viewfinder because it shows more than what is going to be shown on the negative. You can actually see around. You can see it to either side and above and below. So if you're shooting action or if you're shooting on the street, you can actually see as someone is going to walk into the scene, and you can kind of time your shot to get them as they enter the scene or centered in the scene. Or also, you can maybe not shoot because you know someone is about to step into the scene. More than once, I've been shooting with an SLR camera and trying to get a good shot, and just as I'm taking the shot, someone walks in front of the lens, and I get someone's arm or head or shoulder or whatever, and quite annoying. The rangefinder camera reduces the chance of getting these ruined shots. The next camera is a twin lens reflex medium format camera, and these have recently, in the last few years, they've regained some popularity. And this is mainly due to the discovery of the negatives and film of Vivian Maier, who is a hobby photographer who lived in Chicago. And she'd taken a huge number of photos over her life and never really did anything with them. They ended up being put in the storage room, which someone was lucky enough to buy at auction when she'd stopped making payments on it, or after she passed away. And inside this storage room and boxes, there was a treasure of old photographs and negatives and unprocessed film. Really amazing stuff. And when you look at her photos and you see what you can do with a twin lens reflex camera, it's just astonishing. The 6x6 centimeter format offers a huge amount of resolution. Medium format film has it really is hard to beat unless you're like going out to shoot like large format. But it's for all-around use. A camera like the twin lens reflex camera, it's a medium format camera, but it's not too big. The dimensions and weight are actually smaller than a lot of DSLR cameras which are on the market right now. But no DSLR made, period, can come close, not even remotely close, to the resolution and performance you can get with an old twin lens reflex camera like this. An ordinary 35mm camera shooting on 100 speed film will give you about between 80 and 90 megapixels of resolution, which is far higher than any digital camera, full format digital camera today, and much higher than the larger format digital cameras. And of course, a 6x6 format camera gives you far more resolution. You get amazing, and the tone you get from a medium format or large format is just incredible. Nothing comes close to it. When you look at Vivian Maier's photographs or other photographs taken with a twin lens or medium format camera, they're just really amazing. I can't stop looking at them. We go kind of the opposite way from the medium format, and we go down to the half frame format. So these cameras, these half-frame format cameras, and this one is the Olympus Pen S. These were really popular in Japan for a number of years and remain popular to this day. I had a couple of these cameras for a long time. I had a Pen S and a Pen W, and I never shot them because I'd just gotten a Leica MP and a Summilux lens, and I was really enjoying that. And I thought, well, why would I want to go out and shoot a half-frame camera when I have this really expensive rangefinder camera and lens, which can make such amazing photos? And then I decided to sell the half-frame camera, so I took them out and I started shooting with them just to see how they worked and if they worked. And when I got the results back, I was quite amazed with them. They were outstanding cameras. Even with the small half-frame format, I loved the quality of the images that they were able to produce. And then I understood why these cameras were so popular and why Olympus made so many of them. And then the last camera I have here is a more modern point-and-shoot camera. And compared to the other cameras here, this one's quite amazing. Though it doesn't, a lot of people might be turned off by its appearance, but most of these cameras have full manual operation, and this one is fully automatic. And the technology, this one I can shoot automatically, believe it or not, but most of the earlier retro kind of cameras, there's just no way you can compare the accuracy with the exposures you can get from a fully automatic camera like this point and shoot. The most popular camera which Olympus made for a long time was a point-and-shoot camera, the Olympus Trip 35, which was a 35mm camera with automatic operation, and it's really popular today. I sell them more quickly than I can get them, so people really love them. But The Olympus Trip 35 wasn't very flexible when it comes to exposure. It has just two exposure speeds, and which the camera selects automatically, and then it selects from a limited range of apertures. So it gives really good exposures, it's not incredibly accurate. Whereas this Olympus Mu can choose shutter speed steplessly, so it can shoot between speeds. And it can also choose apertures, a wider range of aperture than you can in something like the Olympus Trip 35. But it comes down to appearance sometimes in photography, and a lot of people are interested in film photography because it's a retro activity. And when we engage in a retro activity, sometimes we want to have a tool which has a retro appearance. So the appearance of this camera might put off some people. But all of these cameras are really capable of taking excellent photos, and all of them are suitable for beginners, depending on how motivated you are as a beginner. A camera like this is quite simple. All you have to do is open the door and it switches on, and then you compose on your subject, and then push the shutter button, and it will take an accurate exposure. The other cameras require a little bit more work. You have to set the aperture and the shutter speed, and you have to focus and compose and shoot. And some cameras, for example, the TLR camera takes a little bit more work because the TLR camera is very sensitive to the position. If you don't have it perfectly vertical, it kind of distorts what the film is going to see, and this shows up in images. So you have to be careful to hold it vertically. And also, when you are looking through the viewfinder of the camera, the movements are opposite to what you see inside the viewfinder. For example, if you're trying to see something more to the left of your viewfinder, you have to move to the right to get it. So this is kind of confusing to some people, and it takes a little bit of time to figure it out and get it right. But when you do get it right, you get it very right. And that's one of the strong points about the weak point and the strong point. It's a little bit more difficult to use, but the reward you get for using it correctly is much better than with other kinds of cameras. When it comes to the makes of cameras, that's pretty much depends on personal preference. If you like an Olympus SLR or Nikon or Canon or Pentax or Minolta, they all perform really well. Some are easier to use than others, but once again, appearance is important. Choose a camera which looks good, and you're more likely to use it than a camera which doesn't look so good. Types of photography sometimes are more suitable to different types of cameras. For, say, landscape or nature photography, stuff like that, I'm probably going to use my SLR camera because I can select a wider lens or a zoom lens. If I'm going to do street photography or shooting people, I'll probably go with one of these three cameras because I have a lot of practice with them, and I can usually preset all the settings on them. If I'm going to, say, go shooting in the streets with this rangefinder camera, I'll look at the light and I'll preset my shutter speed and aperture, and I'll preset the focus. I'll preset the focus to a distance where, for example, if I want to catch people from the waist up, I can set it at that distance and leave it that way. And whenever someone walks through and I see them from the waist up, if I snap a photo, it'll come out properly focused. If I want to catch a picture of someone walking and I want from head to toe, I'll set the focus there, and when someone comes across and they fill the frame from head to toe, all I have to do is push the shutter button and I get an accurately focused photo. And I do the same thing with the half-frame camera. It's much faster to use that way. I can also do that with the SLR camera, but I just seem to enjoy street shooting more with the cameras like this. And if I'm doing less people, but maybe combinations of people and backgrounds and scenes where I have, say, a lot of geometry or a lot of detail, then I'll consider the TLR camera because it can capture a lot of details and with a precision which I can't get with the other cameras. And if I am going someplace and I want to take a lot of good film photos, and I don't want, I don't want to take a camera which I'm worried about, being stolen or whatever, which has happened before. I'll take a camera like this. A camera like this is only $50 or $60. It will take super photos, and if I lose it or someone steals it out of my bag or something like that, I'm not going to be too upset. I'll be more upset about losing the film than the camera itself. So anyway, that's it for my video response to what is a good film camera for beginners. I hope it's not too long or too tiring. If you're interested in seeing more camera videos in the future, please subscribe and come back. I hope you enjoyed the video and hope you tune in again soon. Thanks a lot.